So hello and welcome to our final Burning Crusade era exploring with Azeroth with Beryl. Exploring with Beryl Azeroth. It's been a long journey. Anyway, next week we're going to be moving on to Wrath of the Lich King areas, and I'm kind of excited about that. The Burning Crusade was where I started playing World of Warcraft, but Wrath of the Lich King is probably the era that I remember the most, at least of the classic era. It was where I really started getting into things. So, the Isle of Quel'Danas is actually technically in the Eastern Kingdoms, although you cannot get to the Isle from anywhere in the Eastern Kingdoms. So it's there, but it's not. It's sort of a special case. It's kind of like the Blood Elf starting zone and the Ghostlands, in that you can't actually get to any of them because even though geographically they are in the Eastern Kingdoms, since they were added in a different patch, they never actually got joined in. It's a weird situation. And unfortunately that means that you cannot run through the fatigue zone to get to the Isle of Quel'Danas from Sunstrider Isle or the Blood Elf starting zone. Unfortunately. Trust me, I've tried many times. It was the very first outdoor zone added to the game via a patch, and it includes lots of dailies, as well as the very last raid and dungeon that were released prior to the Wrath of the Lich King. So, as I just said, it has both a raid and a dungeon, both of which have highly coveted transmogs and mounts in them. In fact, the Magistrar's Terrace, that was the very first special mount that I ever had drop for me. It's not my most memorable mount that I've ever had drop. That would be the Ashes of Alar. But I did get Kel'Thalas's White Sunstrider, the big old chocobo looking chicken thing. I got one of those probably on my 4th or 5th time doing the Magistrar's Terrace, and I was thrilled about it. So the history of the island is 7,000 years ago. Dathramar Sunstrider, the ruler of the Blood Elf Kingdom, created the Sunwell at a convergence of ley lines using a vial of water stolen from the Well of Eternity. So as a result, the island, which became known as Quel'Danas, also known as the Sunwell Isle, because it housed the Sunwell. And the Sunwell is the raid that is on this island. Now, there's been a lot of history all throughout World of Warcraft, but the Sunwell is an interesting place. I didn't do the raid until years and years after it had been out, because I'm just not a raider. But I do love going in there, cleaning out the raid zone, and then just kind of poking around and exploring. It's a really good one. Also, if you've never seen the backside of the raid and the very backside of the Dead Scar, you will see it later on in this video. It's kind of interesting. I also decided at some point that I should go swimming around the island just in case there was anything cool under the water, and I didn't actually find anything cool, which kind of made me sad. The Isle of Quel'Danas was primarily known for its vendors, which is a very interesting concept. You don't really know too many places just for their vendors. But you can get the Badge of Justice from Smith Huatha, and Shania has got jewel crafting recipes and epic gems, and she is on the first floor of the Sunreach Harbor Inn. Additionally, you can get exotic gear purveyors in the Sunreach Armory, and I think that is possibly for PvP type stuff. All of the quests on the island are part of the Shattered Sun Offensive storyline, and you can grind rep here for a very long time. It's something I really do need to do. Now, there are 3 types of monsters on the island. There are demons that also have undead along with them. There are Naga, and finally Quel'Danas' blood elves. The Naga are Darkspine, which are ones that I've never seen before. And the Naga actually have enslaved the Greengill Murlocs, and they're some of the only Murlocs that you'll see in at least the Burning Crusade and Classic WoW that are neutral to the player. So, peaceful Murlocs, not peaceful Naga. There's also a whole lot of demons around Dawnstar Village and throughout the Dead Scar, which is not really a place that I recommend you going until you're massively overleveled, because a lot of the demons in the Dead Scar are actually elites. Then again, if you're going to the Isle of Quel'Danas these days, you're probably well over level for it, so. Kel's blood elves that are here scattered all over the island, we've got Dawnblade Blood Knights, we've got some Hawk Riders, we've got Marksmen and Reservists, and they actually have the only Blood Elf boats that I remember seeing in the game, and they're kind of cool looking. So I was a little bit impressed, because usually the boats that you see are either Orcish, Night Elven, or the human type boats. So seeing a Blood Elf boat is interesting. They're quite similar to the boats that the Night Elves use, but in very, very Blood Elf colors. The Magister's Terrace is a 5-man dungeon that is located up here on the corner of the island, and it was released in patch 2.4.0. This instance includes outdoor walkways and courtyards, as well as indoor areas that use the same architecture as Silvermoon. There's also a really interesting little scrying orb inside of the instance that gives you a sneak peek of the nearby Sunwell Plateau raid. And following this, you will meet Kaelek, the avatar of the blue dragon Caligos, for the very first time. And if you've been playing Dragonflight, you know that Kaelek has a awesome amount to do in Dragonflight. And like I said, The Magistrar's Terrace is actually where I got my first cool mount, and that was, my White Thunder Chicken. I know that's not what it's actually called, but darn it, I can never remember the name of it. And you would think remembering something as easy as Swift White Hawkstrider would never slip my mind, but it does every single time. The Sunwell Plateau raid was the final raid of the Burning Crusade, and it was open to players right from the start of patch 2.4, but the last 3 bosses were only available as each gate, which blocked the next boss encounter, opened over a set period of time across all of the servers. So it made it very, very interesting back then. I do remember seeing chat about that in general chat as I was running around just exploring things in the... I do believe I was playing a Blood Elf back then. It was right when I first started the game, because I started late in the Burning Crusade. And I actually started with a Blood Elf and then switched over to a Draenei Hunter, who became my main all the way up until the very beginning of Mists of Pandaria, when I ended up switching over and kind of bouncing between a Death Knight, my Hunter, and I think I was also playing a Paladin at the time. But I remember seeing people chatting about, running through the Sunwell, how hard it was, and also how cool it was after you defeated Kil'jaeden. It was really interesting when I finally was able to go in with a group of people that we were all over level, but I had never been in the Sunwell, and they took me through it, and it was really cool. After you kill Kil'jaeden, watching the scripted storyline, and me actually finding out that technically the Blood Elves were no longer mana addicts, at least lore-wise. I'm glad that they went back finally and switched up the eye colors to kind of reflect that now. It's a small cosmetic thing, but it's something that I appreciate. The interesting thing about the Dead Scar is it corresponds to the path of destruction that the armies of the Scourge, led by Arthas, left in their wake. And I didn't realize until I was swimming around the island that the path of the Dead Scar actually goes down into the water. And when I was swimming up to it, I kind of thought that it was like grass and water weeds until I got just a little bit closer and realized that those were bodies. Well, corpses, skeletons. It's a very interesting thing to swim up upon. Anyway, thank you guys as always for watching and listening. I hope that you enjoyed this tour around the Isle of Quel'Danas. Unfortunately, I didn't find anything really cool or hidden here. It was more just an interesting little romp around the island. Next week, Onyx and Beryl will be taking us all the way to Northrend as we start with the Borean tundra. And yeah, hope to see you then. Have a good one.